Time for an award-winning mailbag edition of Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones, your fearless leader, here with you. This is a segment that comes straight from our live show that we do on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, where people ask us questions in real time. They use the hashtag Seahawks, and they super chat us, and we answer whatever questions they send us. And so you may be wondering, how can I be a part of a mailbag segment? Well, if you subscribe, then you'll be notified when we go live, and so you can get in the chat and interact with us in real time and have just a dandy of a time with us on Wednesdays. So go ahead and subscribe now. Join the party. Me, Chugs, Tex, our whole crew. We have a great time. Join us on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Subscribe now for free, youtube.com/SeahawksTV. First one is a $2 super chat from Taker610. Thank you for the super chat, Taker610. If we take Jalen Carter, what then is the next priority? It's a very good question. So let's think about this now for the Seahawks here. You then would be covered on the defensive tackle spot. I think edge would still be a priority for Seattle. I think the center/guard positions, the interior of the offensive line would be up there. Those would probably be the main two. And even though that you signed Bobby Wagner and you brought in Devin Bush, you still need some depth at the linebacker spot, the middle linebacker spot. So those three come to mind. And while I'll go ahead and throw one more in there, the wide receiver spot. I would expect Seattle to use a first or second round pick potentially at the wide receiver position. So that's what I'm looking for Seattle after Jalen Carter there. Doom writes in with a $12 super chat. Thank you, Doom, for that. Hawks should sign Kareem Hunt. A Walker-Hunt backfield would be pretty nasty, in my opinion, and I think it would be badass if the Hawks can trade for Devin White. Cheers, guys. At the time of this recording, Devin White requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No trade has happened at this point. But let's start with the Kareem Hunt element. Kareem Hunt started his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Saw him a lot when I was living in Kansas City. And I got to tell you, from the way things ended to his time in Cleveland, Kareem Hunt is a mess, folks. I mean, there is a lot of off-the-field stuff that goes on with him, and I think that he's just a head case, that he is too much to deal with, and he's not worth the headache personally as far as I'm concerned, especially to be your backup running back. I'm out on the idea of Kareem Hunt. He's a talented player, but I think there's way too much baggage there. I'm not interested in Kareem Hunt. Now, as far as Devin White goes, that would be very fascinating. Devin White is a good football player. We'll see. I think the Bucs still want to hang on to him if they can, but Devin White would be a big difference maker for this Seahawks defense. Seahawkin99 writes, would you rather take Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson at number 5 overall? So it seems like that right now, if the draft were held today and the Seahawks were picking at 5, that it would probably be down to these two guys. Let's assume, for all intents and purposes, that the quarterbacks are out of the picture, that they go 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe Arizona's traded out, somebody else is traded in to get one of those quarterbacks. Let's assume the quarterbacks are gone. Then for sure, it's down to these two. I think Pete Carroll likes Anthony Richardson. He likes Bryce Young, those guys. He's said nothing but glowing things about them, but let's assume they're gone there. One of these two. I don't think you can go wrong with either player. I think they're both going to have fine careers in the National Football League. But even with that said, Jalen Carter, as good as Tyree Wilson is, don't get me wrong, he's very good. I think Jalen Carter's got potential to be a generational talent. We have not seen guys like Jalen Carter grow on trees. I would go with Jalen Carter with this pick. I know that there's some questions about his pro day and the situation that went on in Georgia, but he's not going to go to jail. It's been reduced down to a misdemeanor. Jalen Carter, for me, is that dude. You can't miss on him. I would go with Carter. Pick one to draft. Which would you rather have, Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson? Let us know in the comment section. Type JC for Jalen Carter. Type TW for Tyree Wilson. Which player would you rather have in Seattle, Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson? Let us know in the comment section below. Robert writes, Seahawks sign Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, I got to tell you, he's washed. Let's put it simply. Leonard Fournette, think about this. When Tom Brady came to Tampa Bay, one of the biggest issues that the GOAT had was that his running backs were not good receivers, in particular Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette became a decent receiver over time and working with Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady makes everybody better, but there's only so much he could do, right? And I think if you're Seattle, what you're looking for in your number 2 running back after Kenneth Walker is a guy that can be a very good pass catcher out of the backfield. And Leonard Fournette, I don't think it's good enough at this point in his career to do what the Seahawks are looking for. Go get a young quarter running back day 2 or day 3 as far as I'm concerned. Robert, thanks for the question. P&W family, because we're all in the family, right? Seahawks should draft Carter, Jordan Addison, Kelee Ringo, and an offensive guard or center. Okay, let's take that piece by piece. Jalen Carter, I'm in. Sounds good to me. Jordan Addison, maybe. I'm not opposed to that, but talking to some of the people I've talked to and the scouts out there, a friend of mine, I've referenced this in the past, and I'll say it again. Keegan Renault, who does work on RPM data analysis of these NFL draft prospects, and he's talked to scouts and everything. He says, look, once you get past Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rest of the wide receivers are not wide receiver 1 talents. They're wide receiver 2s. So Jordan Addison, as good as he is, maybe a guy like Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, who could be available in the 2nd round or 3rd round, might be just as good as Jordan Addison. So if you don't get JSN at that 20th pick, you might as well go ahead and wait a little bit at the receiver position. Kelee Ringo, his stock has been all over the place. Kelee Ringo's is. But he's one to watch if he's around the 2nd round for Seattle. Corner isn't as big of a need as it once was for Seattle with the moves they've made this offseason. Offensive guard or center, yeah, you have options. Both those things, guard and center, interior of the offensive line, there's not a whole lot of options. You got to take care of that early if you're going to fill that position of need there. Thanks for that super chat there. Or comment, rather. Peter writes, hashtag Seahawks, is there a chance we can draft Cody Mock? He would be a great pick since he can play offensive guard, offensive tackle, and center. Yeah, I mean, of course there's a chance. I think they very well could be interested in Cody Mock potentially and that flexibility. I mean, think about this, okay, for where the Seahawks are at. So Evan Brown you brought in. You signed him from the Detroit Lions. And the expectation is that he's going to be the starting center for the Seahawks. But he has the ability to play guard as well. Now, you got your tackles taken care of with Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. Those two are going to be your starting tackles, hopefully, for the next several years to come. So you don't need the tackles right now. But the guard and center position, get a few different options, see who can win those jobs there. Cody Mock, flexibility, gives you more possibility, no pun intended, to get some playing time. So, yeah, certainly possible. Arsenal Apex, hashtag Seahawks, hashtag Papa Seahawk. Ayo. I would love to see Josh and Ken Walker as a duo. Easily the top duo in the league, but can we afford him, and how much draft capital would he have to give up? Referring to Josh Jacobs. So we talked about this on the channel, that CBS Sports named Seattle as a top trade destination potentially for Josh Jacobs. And I like Josh Jacobs. I've enjoyed following his career, his days back to Alabama and Nathan Hale High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He and I are from the same hometown. Always been a big fan of Josh. And we saw firsthand what he did to the Seahawks defense in that game earlier this year. He just ran them all day long. But let's be real with y'all for a second here. Let's be real here. Are you going to trade for an MVP caliber running back that's going to be owed $10 million to be your backup and then give the necessary draft capital and pay him as well? I just don't see it realistic happening. Josh Jacobs would be a big asset to the Seahawks, but I can't imagine him being happy being second fiddle to Kenneth Walker when your future at the running back position in this organization is Kenneth Walker. So I like Josh, but don't see it happen. Supersonics RAP writes, what are the odds the Seahawks take a quarterback with their first pick, and who would it most likely be? Thank you for that question there, Supersonics. RIP. I'd love to see the Sonics come back. I'll leave it at that. I don't think Oklahoma City's coming back anytime soon, though. What are the odds they take a quarterback? I'll say this. Pete Carroll has said a lot of nice things about Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. And before you say, well, Pete's just a nice guy, he's just saying that. Pete straight up said last year he did not like the quarterbacks in the draft, in last year's draft. And obviously he was right because other than Kenny Pickett, the rest of them have looked awful. So he did a good job on that front, staying away from those quarterbacks last year. With that said, I think there is an outside chance, okay, if Anthony Richardson falls to 5, that the Seahawks find themselves in a position where they say, it's tempting, we might have to do it. Or there might be even a chance they trade up to 3. They get Anthony Richardson. We know that they like Richardson. We heard Richardson even say that his meeting with the Seahawks at the Combine, it was like love at first sight. It was like, what's the emoji with the face with the heart says eyes, whatever? That's how that meeting went, basically, between Pete Carroll and Anthony Richardson. So that would be the possibility. I still think it's not likely, but I wouldn't rule it out. Hard eyes is what it's called? Okay, hard eyes. Very nice. Should the Seahawks take a quarterback with their first-round pick? And what do you think? Should they do it? Should they take a quarterback? What say you? Let me know in the comment section. Y for yes, N for no. Amazing how that works. Y for yes, N for no. Tell me in the comment section, should the Seahawks take a first-round quarterback? Let us know in the comment section. All right, time for a couple more here. Here's Chris. Chris writes, if we do draft a running back, how do you feel about Gibbs, and what pick do you think we can get him? That's a very good question, Chris. Thanks for sending that in as far as the running back position goes. So let's kind of set the scene for you of what we've been talking about. You heard earlier about Josh Jacobs and that whole ordeal. And we have another question that goes along with this. So we'll kind of combine the two to answer this question here for you. Dawson writing the same thing, similar thing. What do you think of Zach Charbonnet for Seattle? Maybe the complete running back after Bijan, but Gibbs will likely go earlier because of receiving explosiveness. What round would be good value? So let's combine the questions and answer them together here. Let's start with Zach Charbonnet, the back out of UCLA. Charbonnet looks like a complete running back, a do-everything type guy. I think he could be a potential good fit for the Seahawks of exactly what we've talked about in this draft of being that number 2 guy, of sitting behind Kenneth Walker. But we've seen that his prospects have continued to rise here. So you might have to use a higher than expected pick. As far as Jahmyr Gibbs goes, out of Alabama, think about this with Jahmyr Gibbs, okay? They have had a lot of great running backs over the years there at Alabama, and obviously so. They've been, for a long time, the elite program of college football. Now Georgia's gotten in their way a little bit. But they keep their guys fresh. They always have a couple different guys. And so Gibbs, unlike some of the other running backs that we'd be talking about, I think, and we saw this with Josh Jacobs, who we mentioned earlier. Josh Jacobs came into the league. Remember, he was a backup. He didn't even start at Alabama. He came into the league and was just ready to go, and he was not overworked at Alabama. I think the same thing is going to be said about Jahmyr Gibbs potentially. What would be good value? I think if you can find Gibbs day 3, if he's sitting there, round 4 or 5, that'd be really good value. We'll see. But, yeah, somebody, one of those type guys very well could be a Seahawk. Let's see. Steve Avila or JMS is who Vasquez. John Michael Schmitz is who he's talking about. Steve Avila, both guys at the offensive line spots, the interior of the offensive line. So my buddy Nicholas Newton, I don't know if Nick's in the chat watching today or not, but Nicholas, if you read his comments, they're not hard to find. He's been doing the propaganda work for John Michael Schmitz for a while here. But in all honesty, if I'm just choosing who the better player is, who'd be a better fit, it is John Michael Schmitz. I think John Michael Schmitz is the best center in this draft. And I'll lay this one out for you, okay? So when you've looked the last few years at the top centers that have been taken in the draft, you go back last year, Tyler Linderbaum by the Baltimore Ravens. You go back prior to that, Creed Humphrey with the Kansas City Chiefs. Creed was a second-round pick. Linderbaum was a late first-round pick. And both those guys were big difference makers for their teams. And were probably underdrafted, especially Creed Humphrey. But Tyler Linderbaum, if we did a redraft of last year's draft, would have gotten higher than what he did at like 22, whatever it may be. So with that said, John Michael Schmitz, who I think is the best center in this draft, probably going to be late first, early second round guy, more likely early second. That's a chance to get some good value of a guy that could make a big difference that's kind of forgotten about because the center position isn't as valued as it should be. So thanks for that question there. Name a player you want the Seahawks draft this year. Who comes to mind that you'd like to see in a Seahawks uniform in 2023? The Seahawks got 10 picks. How should they use them? Let us know in the comments section. I'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today. We got you covered. It is going to be a whirlwind the next few weeks as we're getting you ready for the draft. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.